I was going to the little store myself, and Fern and Dick owned it.
Okay.
Back then, and of course, my dream, one of my dreams was to have a candy shop. So I was like, hey, I can do my real estate there, and I can do my candy shop.
Hey Islanders, and welcome to episode 172 of the Camano Voice. Today I speak with the founder of Wine by the Bay. Please welcome Mitzi Cameron. Hi, I'm Brandon Erickson, and you're listening to the Camano Voice podcast, where I interview local business owners, comedians, singers, and more. I dive into their backstory to find out how they got where they are, what are some of the tips for you to do the same, and find out where they are going. Tune in every week as I interview more of the people you see every day. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice, the greatest little podcast focused on Camano Island in the Northwest. How are you guys doing today? I hope everything's going well. For those of you who live on Camano or in the Camano-Stanwood area, we had another beautiful weekend, so I'm starting to get used to them, which is probably dangerous because, Washington likes to give you those in March and then strip them away and take them away from you in April. So here we go. I don't have a whole lot more to update this week. So I'm just going to jump into this part. So today I am really excited, though, because today I get to interview Mitzi Cameron. And for those of you who don't know, especially anyone that's moved here in the last 5-10 years, Mitzi was the owner of the Little Store by the Bay, which, if you guys have listened to some of my past episodes, I've mentioned it in little pieces. Like one of the places that me and my friends used to hang out was actually the Little Store by the Bay. When we were in like junior high and high school, we would ride our bikes down there. We'd get a little bit of candy and maybe a soda, and then we just hang out either there or at the beach. And so I loved this store. It was one of my favorite places to go to on Camano Island. It's just kind of a small convenience store right off Utsalati. It's actually where Forte Dance Studio is now located. So shout out to Chris over there. But anyways, I wanted to say this was such an exciting episode because it was such an important piece of my childhood. It no longer exists. So it's one of those weird things where it's like, it was so important to me. So when I reached out to Mitzi, I ran into her and she's like, oh, well, I remember you guys coming by my store. And of course, as a kid, I didn't remember people. And so I was like, wait, you owned the Little Store by the Bay. And so I was like, well, I have to have you on the podcast because that was one of my favorite places to go as a kid. So I was really excited to get her on the podcast. The other piece to that is that she started Wine by the Bay now, which is right in Stanwood, right next to Arco and AM/PM. And I didn't realize this, but like she's kept the by the Bay part in her naming scheme there. And now it makes sense. Like Wine by the Bay for some reason did not click right for me right away, but now I'm like, oh, I get it. And then it also tied into Art by the Bay, which I also didn't know. The reason it was called Art by the Bay is the first one was held at the Little Store right there. So lots of history in this one of kind of like the ongoings and stuff like that of Camano before it became even more well-known of what it is now. She's also a real estate agent. She has been in real estate since, I believe, about 19 is when she bought her first second home or home. Maybe that was her first home. Anyways, been in real estate her whole life. Has always loved running candy stores. So it's something, or always wanted to own a candy store, which is something me and her have in common. And just really fun personality, great person. And I loved hearing more of the history of that store. It makes me even sadder that it's not there anymore. But I'm glad it's been kind of reborn into Wine by the Bay. So we get into all of that and more in today's episode. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Mitzi Cameron. Hey Islanders, and welcome to another episode of the Camano Voice. Today I'm here with the founder of Wine by the Bay. Welcome to the podcast, Mitzi Cameron.
Thank you.
Yeah, so before we get started, tell us a little bit about Mitzi.
Well, I was born and raised in the Northwest, graduated from Arlington High, moved to Stanwood when I was about 15 years old, and me and my brothers didn't want to come to Stanwood because of the rivalry between Stanwood and Arlington. So we drove back and forth until we graduated from Arlington.
Wow. Okay. Nice.
And then just my mom was in real estate back then, in the 70s and 80s. I bought my first house when I was 19. Back then you could assume a loan. You didn't have to qualify.
At 19.
And you could just take the person's contract and take it over.
Wow.
They got
Was
rid
the
of
house
that.
in Stanwood then?
That was Everett.
Everett. Okay.
Yeah. So I bought one in Everett, bought one in Marysville. And then got rid of those and wanted to live by the bay and bought my first house in Utsalati in 1986.
Okay. Nice.
And I was working for Century 21 All-Star, got my license back in the 80s off of Everett Mall
Okay.
Way. And I think I brought half the people from Everett to Camano, because back then D.B. Johnson was building Ramblers for $89,000 in the country club.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So I brought a lot of people from Everett here. They all thought you had to take a ferry.
Yep.
So a few years after doing the real estate, I realized I was way too young for people to pay attention. So I just did my own stuff, and then I took a job traveling with Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers
Okay.
around the United States.
Cool. How did you get linked up with them?
I really, honestly got really bored. I think I was 24 and did the real estate for a while and sat down at the old Helen's Kitchen in Stanwood
Okay.
and opened up the Seattle Times, and there it was in Vancouver, BC. It said Ritchie Brothers Auctioneers, Field Accountant, Travel. When I saw the word travel, I was in.
Wow.
And the rest I just kind of made up.
Okay.
So I traveled all through Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, California. Stayed at the Four Seasons in Marriott.
Okay.
They treated us really nice.
Very cool.
Then I bought my second home when I was on the road at Utsalati, and that's where I raised my kids in the future. And after traveling 4 years on the road, my little brothers, I gotta drink some water.
No, you're good.
My little brothers graduated from Stanwood.
Okay.
But unfortunately, when I was traveling, they decided that their older sister's house could be a party house. So, so I thought, okay, I got to get off the road. So I quit Ritchie Brothers, which was a great job, but came back to Camano Island.
Okay.
And I met my husband at Ritchie Brothers and brought him back. And we bought the little store by the bay.
Okay.
So
Very cool. So I definitely want to pause on this because for those who didn't grow up on the island or haven't been around here for long, back in the day there was a little store there called Little Store by the Bay, right on Utsalati. It's right, there's Utsalati Bay right there. Just one kind of on that main road on the backside. There was a little wood cabin. It's where dance studio is now and some condos. But growing up on the island, especially when we moved here in '95, there wasn't a lot to do on the island, but the Little Store by the Bay was a place that my friends and I could bike down to, and during the summer, at least 2-3 times a week, we would bike ride down to this to our store, and it was one of my favorite places to hang out and just go visit. So how did so was it? You said you purchased it then, so it was already there. What kind of prompted you to do that?
I was going to the little store myself, and Fern and Dick owned it.
Okay.
Back then, and of course, my one of my dreams was to have a candy shop. So I was like, hey, I can do my real estate there, and I can do my candy shop. So Fern said, as any good real estate agent will talk about real estate, Mitzi, I'm not going to list the store, but I do want to sell it. But I'm not going to sell it to anybody but you, because I want you to be here. And I go, oh, okay. So soon after that, my husband quit Ritchie Brothers too and helped me run the store.
Okay.
So then we were running the store, and Ray Mueller was working out of his house down the road.
Yeah.
And he came in and got to know him better there. And he was actually Camano Island Realty, but it was under Preview Properties, but people didn't know that.
Okay.
It was one of those kind of things.
Yeah. Very cool.
So I was with Preview on still back then, but he says, hey, come to work for Camano Island Real Estate. So I teamed up with him, and I think it was Joan and Dan Lane. And then they sold to Windermere, and I said, I don't really want to do the big box store kind of thing. I think I'll hang back with Preview.
Yeah.
And that's how I kept Preview. And then Dorothy, then I had to sell the store because I had my first baby.
Okay.
And Collins Cameron, who started tearing everything off the shelves. And then I had Colby Cameron on the way. So
Okay.
after Colby was born, I thought, okay, real estate, little store, I got to cut back.
Yeah.
And so I sold it to Dorothy, and Dorothy Beardsley worked at my old real estate office in Everett.
Okay.
And then, let's see, where'd we go from there? Let's see. Dorothy was going to sell it after years, and I tried to buy it back before the condo guy got it.
Yeah.
She took his offer instead of mine, which understandable, I guess. And I ended up buying a building in Stanwood.
Okay.
And that's where I did Preview and Camano Island Real Estate. And then the little white house at the end of town came up. And I was driving by it, and I thought, gosh, okay, I don't want it to see it torn down. And so I bought it, and paycheck to paycheck, just kind of kept fixing it up, always knowing it would be something good.
Yeah. Very cool.
And then just a year or two ago, I think I sold the big building where Preview was, and I was able to move into the little white house. And Angela Coatney, who's been, she's lived around here all her life, born and raised, is kind of my partner in crime and one of my top agents. And we were both, God, we didn't, the whole real estate thing, it's just, I think everybody and their brother's a real estate agent. It's just like not getting very fun anymore. And let's do something else, And I always wanted my little store by the bay back.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to call it Little Store by the Bay. So all my kids, like you, grew up and drink wine now.
Yeah.
So let's go Wine by the Bay and put real estate in the back room, so to speak, but I still do it full time. So that's how Wine by the Bay got there, and we just wanted to have a place where Stanwood and Camano could come together finally and have conversations about anything they want to have conversations about. And that's where we're at right now.
Nice. Very cool. So when you ran Little Store by the Bay, what were things that, obviously there wasn't a lot going in that area or on Camano and Stanwood and stuff like that during that time. But how did you kind of make decisions on what you wanted the store to feel like and all of that?
Really a feel-good thing for the kids. It's all about, if they feel good, you feel good kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just love that. I just love the kids.
Yeah.
And then they didn't think I could have kids, so that was part of the reason I bought it too, because I figured that's let it be kind of my family. And then Collins came. They thought he was an ulcer, but he was not. The doctor says, no, it's probably a tubercle pregnancy. What? And so when I went up there, it's like, no, there's a baby there. So that was fun. So, really it's just about understanding what the community's looking for.
Yeah.
And what's lacking. And it was just, I wish it was still there, totally.
Yeah.
The mom and pop shops, Fern got rid of the gas tanks. There was gas tanks there.
Okay.
And so once the gas went, it's like really hard to make enough money on bubble gum.
Yes.
So
1 cent. Yeah.
And then Donna Wilson, who lived down by the beach, I'd walk back and forth to work. Why not? And she was just sitting there, and I go, Donna, you can't just sit there. Retired. Now come help me at the little store. And she goes, all right. And she goes, well, these workers need something to eat. So we started making the clam chowder and the chili. And Donna was like, awesome. She had the best recipe. We lost her list last year.
Oh, okay.
And that just kind of came together. So everybody loved that part of it.
Yeah.
And then I started the first Art by the Bay there.
Okay.
And I was 9 months pregnant, waving people in. I always had parking problems, and I have that again.
Yes.
But Ellen Walters and me did the Art by the Bay.
Okay.
And we're going to do more art stuff there at the Little White House now, too.
Okay.
So
awesome.
Jack Gutner's got some really cool wine originals in there right now.
Nice. Very cool. So I didn't actually know you were part of the founding of Art by the Bay then.
Yeah,
That's very cool.
Yeah. I was really, matter of fact, Ellen and the Stanley Camano Arts came to me and said, "Hey, can we use that again?" And then they started, doing it, I think, at the fair and stuff like that.
Yep.
But that's where it started. That was the first one.
Very cool. Well, now it makes more sense why it's Art by the Bay.
Yeah.
Well, I know it because it has jumped around a lot, but for a while it was up by the Camano Center, Camano Center, or the Atsalati School up there.
Yeah.
But it was like, okay, it's kind of by the bay, but
Right.
it's not like
No, it
on
started
the bay.
originally there.
That makes sense. Very cool. So then, you sold it and that I remember when I went away for college, and when I came back, I think it had already sold and been wiped out. And I remember just driving by, because I didn't come to the island super often because I was starting a job and stuff like that. But when I drove by, I was like, wait, it's gone. Like, where'd it go?
Oh, I know. Your dad was one of my favorite customers. He would come in and he was trying to convince me to do hard ice cream.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Mitzi, I will get you the cart.
Oh.
We'll do it out front." He goes, "It's going to be great." And I go, "I don't know, my hands are really full right now."
I remember him talking about if they only had ice cream here.
Right. He was so bummed I didn't have ice cream. But we had coffee and the movies. Back then, you could rent the big VCR movies.
Yeah. I remember I would always kind of walk down I don't know. Me and my friends would just walk around the store. And granted, it wasn't that big of a store, but we would just walk back and forth and then I've talked about this before on the podcast. But what we would do is we would stop by your store, pick up candy and stuff like that, a soda, and then we would ride our bikes just down the road, just a little ways, to that giant tree that was there that had all these great places to sit on and stuff like that. I've since realized that was private property.
Right.
And we weren't supposed to be there, but we'd hang out there all day.
Oh, man. No,
and then that was the other one that I drove by one day. I was like, the tree's gone. It's just gone. They've completely cut it down.
It was a big willow, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. My kids missed that one too.
Yeah. So it was such a great place, great store.
Well, thanks. And the memories I love. I run into the kids all the time. They, "Oh, you did that." And a few people came in, for the real estate and everything. "Oh, I remember you at the little store."
Yeah.
Of course, there was good stories and bad stories from the little store, but they were all good.
Yes. Yeah. No, for sure. And I definitely, when I think of different areas like our ice cream department or things like that, or when I've thought about candy, or I've wanted to maybe expand to having a candy portion of the store, stuff like that. We don't have the layout for it. But one of my inspirations or thoughts is always going back to the little store, that feeling when you walked in, and when I was prepping for this podcast, actually, I was just remembering, I still get that feeling when I think back, every time I'd walk in the door and
Aww.
go to the little section of candy right there, and
Well, I never let it go. So when I did I agreed with Angela that your heart is with the wine and mine's with the candy. So she's the heart of the wine. I'm the sweetness of the wine, I guess. So I built a Willy Wonka room in there.
Really?
And,
Okay.
My whole intention. I have Wonka bars with golden tickets.
Nice.
And so the problem is the city loved it and it was everything we were doing, but the county said no, we can't. We have to do a full meal to have kids in. So we had to change our license 2 or 3 times.
Yep.
And do 21 or older.
Okay.
So now my candy room's a little advanced. It
Yeah.
still has the really old candies, but it still has the Wonka bars and some other adult candy stuff, but not that adult candy stuff.
Yeah. Well, Stanwood doesn't have any of those, so no, I'm just kidding. No, that's very cool. Yeah, we sell bottles of wine here, but yeah, we've kind of gone up and down the whole licensing when it comes to alcohol. And
It's crazy.
I'm like, wait, so can we just do some wine tasting? If someone wants to try a wine, they're like, well, if you do that, then you either have to be a massive grocery store of over 4,000 plus square feet. I'm like, well, we're not that. Or all of your sales have to come through wine, basically, over 50 or 60%. And I was like, well, we're not that either because we're too
It's
broad.
that fine line.
Yeah. So I was like, okay. So I guess, or they're like, or you be a full service restaurant. And I was like, Well, we're not that either.
I know. And the county says, Mitzi, there's lots of places you'll see out there that are, not to code, but unfortunately they were already doing it.
Yeah.
Way back when.
Yeah.
So we're advancing, and there, there's where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
And the wine we have is all the wine you can't get in a store.
Yeah.
So it's all picked, hand-picked for me and Angela, sampling, hopefully not too much, and coming up with a variety and understanding about where the grapes are coming from.
Yep.
So it's fun. And then the candy room's fun for me.
Yes, of course. So when it comes to the wine side then, how do you guys kind of determine what type of wines? Do you have a specific area? What do you kind of guys focus on there?
Angela has brought in a section so people don't have to go to Woodinville to the wineries. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to, her best friend and the past was John Patterson Cellars.
Okay.
Okay, so they ran a bar and stuff like that down in Everett way back when. So we've got Patterson's wines and a lot of other Woodinville, so people don't have to go to Woodinville locally. And it's the Woodinville ones you can't get in the stores.
Yep.
And then the other ones are, from Italy, France, California, of course, Portugal, and it's really fine tasting wines. They're all really, really good. And you can, when you do the wine tasting, if you do the wine tasting, it's like $15, and you get like 4 or 5 samples, and it's like equal to a glass. And then you can, if you buy a bottle, you get that waived.
Yeah.
So you can get a bottle at $20, but get the $15, wine sampling waived.
Yeah.
And then, we have all the cheeses from around the world.
Oh, nice.
And,
okay.
And crackers and meats. So it kind of goes together.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, very cool. I'm going to have to swing by. I feel really, I'm always like, I pass the store on my way into work. So I'm like focused on like getting into work. And I'm like, oh, there it was.
Yeah, I know.
So.
And we're trying really hard on the whole parking. I've got these signs. If you pull into the right, because that's the pickup place, and then back in, you can get out and not get trapped.
Yeah.
So we're working on a couple other ideas. We've got Angela's got a great friend with a wine van, let's call it.
Okay.
So we might be shuttling people in the summer.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have an outdoor area for people to bring their dogs.
Nice.
So.
Very cool. Yeah, I've talked with Nick over at Orchards. I've interviewed him on the podcast, but I was same conversation with him. Like, how do you get in and out of your place? And he's like, when we're leaving, because they all live in Stanwood, he's like, when we're leaving at the end of the day, there's days we sit there for a half hour just waiting.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh.
Well, and the
do
city, they're trying. Everybody should try to get involved with that about the roundabouts. I know some people want them, some people don't.
Yeah.
But I think there was 4 that were supposed to come in. 1 has already been approved, and that's the first one that's going to be up there as you're going to go to the fair off of Highway 532, because nobody can ever pull out right there.
Yep.
And once that one starts, I would think that's going to snowball people to slow down. And then you'll have a couple of other ones, hopefully, if they get approved.
Yeah.
And then one will be, hopefully, to me in the Orchard Nursery in the park that's going to go on the left.
Yeah. Yeah. No, there's so much going on. There's starting to be so much going on there, and then there's just the traffic flow. And if you're midday, it's okay because you're in between the two, the leaving or the coming back.
You're right.
But at the beginning and end of the day, it's just a wall of traffic.
I know. Sometimes it's like nobody there, and you can pull in easy and pull out, and it's odd. Like even 12 to 3 is kind of good, but then you got the buses after that, and so then from 6 to 8, it's kind of slow. So.
Yep. So yeah, that's always the struggle of that area, but that's really cool. I'll definitely figure out a way to pull in there someday.
Yeah, definitely.
Come visit. So then the other thing is that you mentioned in here, you started getting into real estate very early. You said you bought your first house at 19. Was that something that was within your family that they were
No, my mom, like I said, my mom was in real estate.
Okay.
And she single mom, raised 5 kids. I ended up being a single mom raising 2 kids. So.
Wow.
But that's life. And I just loved real estate even back then.
Yeah.
I watched her do it, and I'm like, wow. And then when I found out you could just sign the contract to assume it, that was easy. But then they changed it in the 80s. They changed it really quick.
Yeah.
And so then you had to at least qualify. But, and then I don't know, I just liked it. Just liked it all the time. And so I got my own license and worked with my mom for a while and then went to work on the island.
Yeah.
And,
So then that's obviously over the span of like some insane real estate things. And now we're going through, well, we went through this crazy spike and then we're coming into whatever we are now. But what has that, like, what are the things that you've kind of seen in real estate as you've been going through it, in the very highs and the high low, lows and stuff?
Well, I'm scared for people how much they've paid for some of the homes in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, everything comes up, gets too high, it's got to come down sometime.
Yep.
So that's what's happening now. The interest rate too is, of course, making it more difficult.
Yeah.
So your question is, what's your advice?
Yeah. Well, I guess. Yeah. I guess what's the good when it comes to buying, because buying or selling or just being in real estate, as in owning a house or that, versus renting. What are some tried and true things that are true regardless of kind of what the market's doing?
100%. If I did a couple classes with the business school and stuff like that. Is kids. I don't care what age you are, you got to understand your credit. And most people don't understand, what your credit score is and why that matters.
Yeah.
And they also don't understand, and Angela specializes on first-time homeowners, and she gets them in there, and there's a company that can clean your credit up. Like if your score is like 6, and you can get a loan, but you got to be 680. So this company, for little money, very little, like hundreds, will do these letters and stuff to the credit bureaus and bring that score up within 6 months to 9 months, and they can buy the home.
Wow.
So credit, a lot of people just don't understand that, and then they overdo it, and then they go buy a car and they have this car payment. If you want to buy a house, don't have any payments.
Yes.
Because with these taxes going up and everything, you're going to be stuck sitting there going, well, now what do I do? And if you're in, then the equity, they think they have equity, but then the banks are going to get tighter, so you can't really take your equity out. So you have to look ahead at all that, understand real estate, understand what equity is.
Yeah.
I mean, the classes I took, most kids didn't understand what equity was in the home.
Wow. Yeah.
And then, the credit. And I worked for Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae too. So, back in the 2008, we had over 100 listings all around from Bellingham to Seattle. And if that wasn't a sad time, that was a sad time. It's like you really start to learn. And don't overbuy. Never overbuy. Unless you want to stay. My first house on Camano, after I bought the other two, I think I was 21, 20, and I had a 30-year note on that. And I had it for 30 years. It works. Or if you pay that extra payment a year, you can cut your loan like in half.
Yeah.
Understand all that.
Yeah.
Understand your interest rate and how, what you're doing. Rentals are not always the way to go.
Yeah.
Because if you get stuck with someone not paying or stuck in there and you can't afford the overflow, you don't want to put yourself in that position either.
Right. So a question I have, because the other thing is you mentioned, you started doing this when you were 19. Obviously, prices were a different level. And I know things like minimum wage, cost of goods, all those have gone up. But houses have gone up exponentially in comparison. So if people are looking at that as an option of income or anything like that, what type of advice would you give those people that are in their early, mid-20s and they're like, I think I want to get into real estate, maybe get some rentals or any of that? What would be your advice if you were talking to someone about that?
Pick one channel that you're thinking about doing regarding if it's a real estate thing. Mm-hmm. Talk to an experienced agent. I mean, someone that's been doing it for 10 to 40 years, because the knowledge that person has is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. I mean, I've developed land. I've built 6 homes. Just putting that picture together about why you're buying in that house, or if you went to like a financial advisor or a specialist in real estate and said, I want to make some money, how do I do it?
Yeah.
Then that person would sit down and say, well, here's the 3 ways I would do it, and here's the 3 ways that you could do it.
Yeah.
Building used to be a lot cheaper, and it's getting better now. Buying land, understanding land development, understanding what a well and a septic and
Yeah.
You know, the county and the archaeology, the things that you have to have, understanding all that before you dive in.
Yeah.
I mean, and that, which leads me to the wine store. Me and Angela will be doing new first-time homeowners, you know, get your credit clean, all that classes, I guess you're called, just, you know, for fun, you know,
Yeah.
wine sample, have fun, talk about real estate.
Yeah.
And then I am going to do some advanced stuff, like you really want to know about land developing or understanding all the stuff I just talked about. Then I'll have a class on that.
Okay.
Just for free. Just come on in, let's talk.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to teach you guys. I'm teaching my kids that right now.
Yeah.
Colby bought her first home, excuse me, in Wenatchee, little house with a pool.
Okay.
You know, and she's what are you, Cole? 26? And Collins is 28, and he bought a house for developing in Arlington. But you got to figure out why you're buying the home.
Yeah.
It's got to make sense today in 10 years.
Yeah.
Or 3 years. So.
Yeah. So my follow-up question to that, which you kind of answered, with the way that prices and things of houses are, sometimes it feels like it's not a viable option. I mean, when I look at my finances, sometimes we're like, but if I tried to bring in like a second mortgage for a rental or something like that, like I don't know that I could. I mean, you could, but your margin gets so thin there. How do you, I guess, again, how would you kind of walk someone through that's kind of looking to get into that with prices where they are?
Right. First thing I'd do is I would say find out what your borrowing power is. Okay, so we got to figure out where your borrowing power is. Is it from here? Is it from there? Could you rent your home out and wash that bill to qualify for that bill? Are you going to go cash? So number one, how can you figure out what you can borrow? Borrowing
Okay.
power, and that comes back down to, you know, where's your credit? But also understanding a good lender that can tell you all these things. Hey, there's 3 different ways to go. You know, there's a 7, doing 30. You know, like, what's that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I learned. You know, it's like 7, doing 30. Oh, that means that I can, so I can't qualify right now at 7% interest because the rates are high. But if I do a 7, doing 30, and I'm stepping into the lender's world, so you'd have to ask them, but you can buy down the rate to 4. And now you qualify.
Okay.
And your rate's up, but in 7 years, you got to sell or refi.
Yeah.
Okay? So that makes sense because you know, and I thought that's how I bought my first Atzelati house, is I thought, well, I'm going to sell it or refi it out in 7 years, and I bought that one that way.
Okay.
But then, you know, 7 years went by, I said, heck no, I'm not selling that.
Yeah.
So I turned 2 of them into Airbnb, so that's cool.
Nice.
So, yeah, talking with an experienced person and say, what works for me? Can you still make money in real estate? 100%.
Yeah.
How? You need to figure out what now looks like. Unfortunately, I think there is going to be some more foreclosures coming up.
Yeah.
The auction block's awesome if you understand how to use the auction block, but talking to an experienced agent
Yeah.
that's bought through the auction block helps.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think the other thing that I hear a lot, especially when I'm talking to people, I obviously have not done real estate in the sense of I haven't purchased other real estate other than this building.
That's
in
kinda
my
big.
house. Yeah, that was big, but that was kind of worked with the business, and so
Yeah.
it functions that way. But when I looked at it and researched it a little bit, you know, the people that are experienced stuff, they say like you want to look at as many pieces of real estate as you can, so you're deciding from a really big pool. And what I hear a lot when I talk to either people that are like talking about buying a house like for rentals or for a business or whatever, is that they're like, oh, well, this one popped up, I think I really like it. I'm like, wait, you think this is it because it's the one that just popped up? I'm like, wait. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but I know you need more than one option, and
you
the
do.
more you get, the better.
Right. Yeah. And there's you can make money elsewhere. You know, you can on vacant land where you don't have all the expenses of the upkeep, and you know, there's different ways there to make money.
Yeah.
Going in with a partner, but knowing that it's like, you know, hey, because, you know, we're going 50-50, all expenses and stuff like that. We're going to
Yeah.
keep it for, you know, so many years, and we're going to either refinance or we're going to sell it.
Yeah.
You just got to, and then the rental market, you got to know where the rental market is. I mean, if people can afford $3,000 a month, usually they're going to, if they have good credit, they're going to buy, hopefully.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
owner contract. There's still owner contracts out there. People don't ask about them.
Yeah.
But if you asked your agent or that you're working for, your broker that's working for you, there's a button you can push on the MLS that says, "Hey, who's got a bunch of real estate out there and wants to carry the note versus the bank?"
Yeah.
So you can, and then it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
You know, so you can just assume, not as easy as you could in the 80s, but you can have a private assumed contract or private contract with the owner of that house because he just doesn't want to put it as a rental because they don't take care of it as much.
Yeah.
But a lot of these were bought cash.
Yeah.
And so they're owned free and clear. And these people would rather carry 4% or 5% even, and for you,
Yeah.
and that's better for them
Yeah.
than the bank.
Yeah.
So
Well, and some people aren't, depending on the personality, some people actually like the drip income rather than all at once.
yeah, I have a good friend that says that a steady drip in the bucket's better than a splash sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool. Well, I definitely want to, is there a way for people, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? Or if they are interested in diving more into real estate or anything like that?
Just stop at the Wine by the Bay. We're only open right now Wednesday through Saturday, 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock. But we do real estate during the day. If you see a car there from 9 o'clock to 3, that's me or Angela doing real estate.
Okay.
And welcome at any time. You can text me, call me, say, hey, I'd like to have a private one-on-one. Kind of sounds weird, but anyways,
The candy shop, the one-on-ones, this is a good wine. This is a great shop.
But all that, I'd love to help educate kids on, and all you guys are kids now. It's kind of strange to me.
Yeah.
Grown up.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah, and I think, I definitely think everything when it comes to real estate, it's, it's also, things can go so badly because if you make these, couple wrong steps in there, then
So
all of a sudden...
give me a bad scenario. I'll tell you why it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
You'll just be in upside down or too much debt and, flip the wrong way. So I
But,
definitely...
life's about chances in certain things. You've got to, you believe in yourself, 100%.
Yeah.
There's, doing all the weird things that I did, buying the commercial building and doing the businesses. And I even opened up a hair salon and sold it before I opened. I wasn't a hair salon person. I just was going to rent the stalls out, And there's just so many other ways you can make money on it. And I remember your dad talking about being an entrepreneur. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I was born selling blackberries for $5 a can. And back then we would go door to door and we would make steel because even to this day the Social Security cards they come in they're paperish.
Yep.
Well, back in the long time ago, probably 50 years ago, me and my brother would go around and we had this little machine and we would make aluminum Social Security numbers for all the old people or anybody on the street in Lake Stevens. We lived when we were little.
Yeah.
And I think about that now and I think we actually went door to door and asked people for their Social Security card and then made them, because we said, oh, that one's going to get ripped, you're going to lose it, and we'd make them for, $5 or whatever back then.
Wow.
And we made we made at least $100. So
That's crazy. Yeah.
So I think you have to have that idea of I want to learn about what makes money. If
Yeah.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah.
We do stuff for the community too, and anytime we can. And I'm involved now with Kat in the new art
project?
mobile.
Yeah.
So we did a sponsoring there, and
Nice.
and So it's all good, and this community has been just fantastic. I
Yeah.
mean, I went to the Cinque Terres in Italy to try their wine, and thought, hey, Azzolati Bay is as good as the Cinque Terres almost.
Yeah.
It's just a little distance away.
Yeah.
And the wine over there is better.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're bringing that wine here.
Yes. Very cool. Well, and that's actually one of the things. I've talked to my friend who's now a pilot. He's been able to now travel all over the world. He's been to Thailand, all over Asia, Europe, some South America. He's really just gone everywhere because when you're in the airline industry, you can get those tickets and you can go anywhere. He said, in his travel and then also talking with pilots who have done the same thing, they all say the Pacific Northwest is really unlike anywhere else. And it's got, like, when especially you go up Highway 20, go to the Cascades, and you do the hikes, you do the, you see the water, just the different things we have here. He's like, it's cool to see other cultures and stuff like that. But as far as the landscape, we're really blessed to be in this area. It's just incredible.
It is. I know. When your dad came into the little store by the bay, it was like, gosh, I got to live here. And then so many people just thought you had to still take the bridge,
Yep.
But I think everybody knows that now.
Yes.
That's out.
Yes.
But I think when people live, I don't think I've sold very many people that I've sold homes to on Camano. Very few have I sold them off Camano. I mean, like, I want to get out of here.
Yeah.
So, Camano is very precious.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So then, as far as Wine by the Bay, I know we talked about you guys have a lot of different wine varieties you guys have kind of handpicked. You've got a little bit of a candy shop there. What do you guys kind of see as the future of Wine by the Bay as you continue to develop it?
A place that people can ask questions and come and talk about anything they want to know about Stanwood and Camano, without having to sign up for anything, let's just say, And we hope to have, like, the outside, open for them, to people that have dogs that bring their dogs. And if we go to further food, which we have a full kitchen, but we have a few other things we have to do, then we can have our kids back.
Okay.
So
nice.
And I would love to have kids come back into the candy shop.
Yes.
So that we'll probably advance towards that, and then having meetings for people. Like if someone just wanted to book the place for like a Monday, Tuesday, they're going to have their book club there, and or a speak. Then bring people in for meetings and like that when we're not open.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome.
Yeah. We hope to someday have a deck that overlooks, like, the Orchard Nursery, and you can actually see the water.
Yes. Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, I like to end every podcast with some rapid fire questions. So the first one is, what purchase of $100 or less have you enjoyed the most in the last 3 months?
I'm going to have to say the bacon wrapped dates at the Blue Heron.
Nice. I saw those on the menu. I was like, those sound really good.
Oh my, yeah. They're the best.
Awesome. Who is the most influential person outside of your family in your life?
Oh, it has to be Dr. Wayne Dyer.
Okay.
Do you know who he is?
No.
Oh, my recommendation to everybody, if they have kids or if they don't have kids, is to read. I don't even read books. I listen to them, but I have no patience to read.
Me neither. I'm not good at it.
But Dr. Wayne Dyer pretty much changed my life in my early 20s.
Okay.
And his books are all about, if you have an intent, then that's follow that intent.
Yeah.
And they're motivational, I would have to say, but very blessed.
Yeah.
So, highly recommend all and every book that he ever wrote. And he's passed a couple years ago back, too.
Okay.
So, Wayne Dyer, 100%.
All right. Very cool. This is a fill-in-the-blank question. I know this is weird, but I've always wanted to blank.
Well, I've done most of it, so I thought about that one. I wasn't sure.
Nothing left on your list?
Can't sing anymore. So, and I had a song published in Nashville once, but
oh, cool.
I'd probably want to still do songwriting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Who's an interesting and fascinating person that I should interview next?
Oh, gosh, there's a bunch of them. You just got to find them. They're hiding out there.
Yeah.
Chris Wilson with Pulmonar Land Consultant.
Okay.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
Dave Moritz. Dave Moritz, he's the one that at one time did the brass sculptures at the Y, but then they got stolen.
Okay.
Really interesting guy. Been on the island ever since I've been here, which has been over 40 years at least.
Okay.
And he's in the Natsalati area.
Okay. Very cool.
And there's good old Ray Mueller, too.
Yeah.
He knows all about this area.
Yeah. All right. And lastly, what piece of advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
To pick up Dr. Wayne Dyer's books way before 20. I was only 25 when I picked him up, but definitely. One of his things used to be, and I told my kids this and I put it in their cards, advance confidently towards your dreams and endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, and you will reach success in common hours.
Nice.
That was just one of his, he really is what everybody should listen to.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, very cool. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And Islanders, I will talk to you on the next one. Well, a big thank you to Mitzi Cameron for joining me on the podcast today, and thank you for listening. If you haven't already, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. It really helps us be found by other Islanders like yourself. And be sure to share this episode and your favorite episodes of the greatest little podcast focused on Camano and the Northwest. All right, guys, thanks for listening, and see you next time.